2 weeks away for the Big Ten and the Buckeyes. Ohio State football against Nebraska on opening night. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment, share the videos out on social media, and, of course, subscribe right here. Talking Ohio State, of course, with D. Miller, wide receiver there from 1995 to 98. Had D on several months ago. You can join him on 97.1 The Fan. D, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's Monday. Just here at the office, getting things taken care of, and looking forward to some Big Ten and Ohio State football here the next couple of weeks.
D, can you put yourself in the place of these players and what they've had to deal with for the last 6 months? No spring football. They got back on campus in June, but it was in waves, and of course they had to go through all these guidelines and safety measures and testing, and who knows what that looks like. And then ever since then, they're hearing about situations all over the country where, this team had to stop practice for 2 weeks, and this happened, and 23 players tested positive. And then we start the season, and it's been a pretty successful season in terms of rolling out these games. But we're still, as of last weekend, I counted 16 games that were canceled, and we've got more from last weekend and more coming up this weekend. So about 80% of the games are being played, but it's still a very uncertain situation. They thought there was going to be a season, then they thought there was going to be a revised season, then it got canceled, and there was little hope there for a few weeks, and then it comes back, and can you put yourself in that position, even though you didn't have to go through it? You were an Ohio State football player, to try to put yourself through what they're possibly going through right now.
I think that'd be difficult because it's such a emotional roller coaster, football players and athletes, we're programmed. Like every part of the year is programmed out. You know what you're going to do. And, with the COVID-19 piece, it's just throwing everybody for a loop right now, understandably so. It's a very, very serious illness that a lot of people are really trying to avoid. But, as I said, usually in the spring you have spring ball, then you have some time off, then you have fall camp, you get ready for the season. All of that has been up and down. So to go from, I can't wait to have a season, to hold on, we may not have a season, to we may have a season, but it's just going to be maybe shortened. It's just so many different emotional roller coasters. I was watching NFL Countdown yesterday. I was listening to Matt Hasselbeck, and he said something that I thought that was a really good comment. Always basically we have to control what we can control, right? At the end of the year, whoever can do just that, can control whatever they can control through all the ups and downs, I think is going to be the most victorious, because there are things that there's going to be changed just like that fly, and you have to be able to adapt with it. You never know. You can have someone that's very, very key to your offense or defensive unit catch COVID. Then what do we do next? So I think this is the time that everyone has to be ready. Hopefully, from this time that one has still been conditioning, have been working on their bodies and just staying active. I saw the week number 1 with the NFL. You never seen so many injuries in that week number 1. So, of course, we have to have player safety, and that comes with still able to keep your body the way that it needs to be to compete at a high level and keep them away from the virus. So those are two things that, we've never had to deal with like this. So kudos to all the head coaches in the Big Ten across college football that are just trying to do the best they can do, manage a team, and be able to live in a bubble and not have any positive tests so they can compete that Saturday.
You played on a couple teams, if not 3 teams, when I think about, hey, we could say all 4 teams, 95, 96, 97, 98, where you had to have a feeling during the off season that, we've got a chance to do something special here. And you did accomplish those things in a number of ways. So I'm not discounting other teams across the country, their players, their coaches, they commit just as much effort and blood, sweat, and tears to this process in trying to get back on the field. But you could almost hear and see the pain in Ryan Day's face when it didn't look like there was going to be a season. And obviously, with the players uniting and getting their parents involved and pushing toward playing these games. And again, you played on special teams where I'm sure you knew when you were working out in the off season that there might be a little bit difference, a little more incentive when you know we could do something special versus we're just going to go out. We're going to give it our best and play a season. But versus we got a special bunch here because you've been on those teams where there just has to be that incentive there for this Ohio State football team.
Yeah, I think I was getting a little interference. I think you were saying something to the fact of all the players coming together and joining and with their parents involved, things like that. I think that was so important because I think, even my perception, you were thinking that most people didn't want to play because of how contagious this virus was. So to see Trevor Lawrence down there at Clemson, to see Justin Fields at Ohio State, like all these big time athletes with the voice and the platform come out to say, hey, wait a minute, this is not the narrative. We actually do want to play. We don't want to go back home to our home cities because we can't be protected. So I think that was good. I think that kind of opened up the doors for more conversation. Listen, I understand all the commissioners in college, and especially with the Big Ten and the Pac-10, first to just say, you know what, we're out of it. We're not going to kind of deal with it. And you're really just thinking about safety. And then after a couple of weeks, you see that, other teams, other leagues playing. So now you're saying, now, wait a minute. All right, so let's take a step back. Let's realize things. Let's get infectious disease specialists involved in this conversation. And how can we make this work? And I think by the players coming out, obviously the parents coming out, I think that opened the door for more people to say, you know what, let's take a second look at this. And I think that was successful. You have the Big Ten is going to be starting. The Pac-10 is going to be starting, the SEC. So, I think it was good for those guys with the platform to come out and say, listen, we want to play ball. We would like the fans to be there, but if they're not, we still want to play ball. And I think they were successful.
D, hopefully you've got me. Can you hear me okay? What I was getting at with the previous question,
yes.
As well, in addition to what you laid out there, which was some really good stuff, is that, it could be argued that all the teams that you played on were special teams that had a chance to do something special. And you could probably sense that, I'm sure, in the off season when you're working out. You're still going to work hard and do all those things to try to win games, but there's got to be that extra incentive when we got a pretty special group. We got talent on this team, and that's what we're dealing with this Ohio State team. And after coming up just that much short last year, you could just tell in Ryan Day's face, watching him talking about pleading to get this season going, that this team really wants to get on the field.
Yeah, because the comparison, I like for us, for my year, 1998, when we came in ranked number 1 with all that hype coming in, man, it would have been so stressful, right? Knowing how good we were, how much talent we had to get that talent back on the field. And I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine, hey, you're going to play, you're not going to play, and things like that. But definitely the extra incentives. Right now, everything counts. It really does when it's in the regular season. But, you have your small, like you start playing the season and then, the next 3 games could get postponed due to someone catching COVID. So, my mental would say, hey, let's take this week by week, right? We've already been doing that. So let's come into the first week. Let's just take the first week and we go in there. Because you just never know what can happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks. You see what's happening in the NFL with the Broncos and the Patriots. The Titans are having an outbreak. So you got to take it day by day. And you really have to emphasize safety, not only from your team, but your coaches, the trainers, the athletic trainers, the EQ guys. You really have to be safe, because if we get one case, right, it's probably going to get postponed. So I think not only are you talking to your guys that's on the football team, but administration as well.
D. Miller, Ohio State wide receiver, 1995 to 98, played on some of the great Ohio State football teams. We can go through each season and what was accomplished was tremendous. Of course, the 11-0 start, 95. They win the Rose Bowl in 96. Another tremendous clash with Michigan in 97, coming up just a little bit short in a big comeback. And then in 98, they capped it off with what most people consider to be the best team in college football in 1998 with a Sugar Bowl win and a Big Ten championship. So, D, looking at 98, you alluded to 98 going into that season. Number one, you had the big national TV game at West Virginia, bullseye right on the target, right on your back. And to a certain extent, I don't know if this applies to you and that Ohio State team, because you guys were a target all the time, regardless of the elite expectations. But was there a difference between being the target versus, let's say, 97 after losing all that talent in 96? The expectations were a little bit lower. Do the players feel that? Do you feel that pressure?
Well, I think, like, especially, we had a very talented team, 97, obviously, and we did really, really well. And I think after that season, we kind of like took a look at the locker room and said, listen, we have a lot of talent returning back. And being ranked preseason number one puts that target on your back. And I think we handled it pretty well. It's always, I think, more pressure when you have the target versus being 3 or 4, somewhere right up in there. But we embraced it. That's why we came to Ohio State, and unfortunately, the Spartans, Nick Saban, that defense, played us very, very well. Ended up beating us. Plaxico Burress, really, really strong game. Cedric Irvin performed very, very well. And, you got to take your hats off to things that they came in. They've always played us tough. They've always played us really, really. And you what Nick is still doing to this day defensively, right? You see him leave Michigan State. He went to LSU. He's been to the Dolphins. So, when I sit back and take a look at that, and that one loss, even though it still pains me today, got to look at the captain that was controlling the ship, which is Nick Saban, who's one of the most successful college football coaches in history. So kudos to them.
Exactly. Little did we know at that point that guy standing on the other sideline was going to win 6 national championships. It's kind of crazy to think about, because he was an up-and-comer at the time. Yes. He had been an assistant with the Cleveland Browns and took over at Michigan State, and people recognized him as, this guy knows football. He's an up-and-comer, but to be a legend, 20 years later is crazy. Yes. To think of it in those terms. D. Miller on the line, 97.1, 97.1. Yes, the fan, Ohio State wide receiver in the mid-90s, played on some great Buckeyes teams. When you look at this wide receiver core for the Buckeyes, you got to be pretty excited to see these guys all as a collection. So basically, back in your day, 2 starting wide receivers, you bring in the third guy on third down. Maybe you go 4 wide once in a while if you're really in a passing mode. Now, there are like 7 or 8 guys that they're eventually going to get into these games. They're taking plays off. You didn't get that. If you caught a 25-yard pass downfield, you weren't tapping out. You're coming back to the huddle.
Exactly.
These guys are running to the sideline. But the talent and the depth at wide receiver, and Ryan Day has even made that more of an emphasis than Urban Meyer, if that was possible, because he really wants to make a sophisticated passing attack. It's got to be pretty impressive for you as a guy that understands the craft to watch this talent at wide receiver for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I think, with Ryan Day, he's coming from and all the experience that he had before he became head coach, having that NFL experience, obviously Justin Fields is a talent that's second to none. The wide receiver group is very, 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 very deep. So I think I was in here, in this group looking around, even when we played, we looked around with myself, David Kenyon, Rambo, Reggie Germany, we could all go like 4 deep if we wanted to. Now this is just the time. It's just the era where, you're going to run the spread. You're going to put 5 or 6 guys out there and wing it around. So you would have to feel very, very good and confident that Justin Fields now, I think he performed very, very well his first year, which came with a lot of pressure. You know, he was all world in Georgia, went to Georgia, you know, couldn't play. Then you come up north, right? And that comes with a lot of pressure. I think he handled it well. And I think after the season, you kind of look back and you say, oh man, that was okay. I thought it was going to be good. It ended up good. Now let's get ready for the next season. And I think him being up here for the second season, you know, you're with your guys in the off season, you know the terminology, you feel better when you go around campus, you know your way. So everything is just better. So I think he's really going to hit that leadership role in regards to commanding the offense and commanding the team and holding everybody accountable.
Less than 2 weeks away from the Buckeyes in Nebraska. D. Miller on the line from 97.1, The Fan, and of course, wide receiver at Ohio State from 95 to 98. D, we appreciate you stopping by. It's always a great discussion. We learn a lot from you, and we appreciate it.